Whew. Okay. 3, 2, 1, and we are live. Ooh, okay, where to start? This one's, let me just hide my... Let me just hide my bookmarks quick. How do you hide your bookmarks? Not that I'm hiding anything, I just don't like people looking at my bookmarks. Right. This one's a bit complicated because I feel like my feelings on BadEmpanada are mixed. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. See, the trouble is, like, I agree with a lot of what he says. It's just I kind of get a bit icky about the way he sometimes goes about it. So what prompted me to make this video? I'm not sure how significant this video is. It's just something that personally, yeah, maybe I'm, indoctrinated or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So it was more going through the comments section here. That kind of prompted this. See, it's not even necessarily that I disagree with. I haven't watched the video itself yet, but I mean, I can understand what he's saying. I just feel sometimes some of the stuff he says is a bit alienating. Ah, shit. I thought it would be in the top comments somewhere. Hang on. Oh, wait. Ah, there was this one. Yeah, I commented this. See, the trouble is, I don't know. I just feel like pointing out how, like, when you want to convince people, you need to, like, you need to kind of frame it in a way that appeals to them. I know that maybe that's scummy, but I'm not sure. See, I'm a bit on the fence because I think I like Lindsay Ellis as a person. I mean, I don't know her in person, but from her videos, what I've seen there, I I think she's a reasonably nice person. Hmm. I think Miss Rachel had never really received any serious hate ever. She was just 100% unprepared in the rare bowl of a cute, fluffy friend. So even though she pulled back from somewhat, as in the adults and showing resistance, so much she didn't say the truth. Yeah, but that's not really funny. I see. I'm a bit on the fence on about a comment like this because it's not really that funny. Because I don't think Miss Rachel did anything wrong. I'm getting so annoyed at this frame. Oh, please, I'm going to press therefore it's okay. I don't think Lindsay Ellis ever said that. Like, maybe I'm being naive. Um, I don't know. Unironically, what's her name? Uh, shit, what was her name again? That that black lady who was arguing with Vosh, what was her name again? Or was she non-binary? I'm not sure. Got her name. She ironically said like, "Oh yeah," um, basically implied that they should deport all white people from South Africa, which is I can understand the feeling behind it, um, but for obvious reasons, that's not a way to build a society. The liberalization of breadtube old guard is evidence of exactly how important theory is. Yeah, I can understand why you'd say that. It's just hmm, I just don't think that's any way to build a movement. I mean, I sure encourage people to read theory. That's always good, but just by and large, people just aren't going to do that. Valenciana has a habit of lashing out at her critics. She left YouTube because she had a racist take about Raya and got called out for it. I have not really looked into that. Circle joking each other, even if they repeatedly act racist or some shit. It's just like, man, this is really. Yeah, I get it can be isolating, but like again, you can't build a movement with these purity tests. Sure, that they're great if you want to figure out what's right, but oh boy, at a certain point you've got to work with other people. Of course, only a Greek has such correct opinions. I was saying, I want to two girls a shot. What? I don't remember her saying that. Let's on this whole virtue thing ourselves. This obsession by some answer. See, here's the trouble, and I will somewhat go and agree with that because what hell, that was literally my last video. Um, Potential. Oh, come on now! You can't pretend that she's not intelligent. His rays aren't even sense. What? Hmm. Hmm. It's not a very funny joke to make in this context. I don't think she ever once said that. Well, no, there is no acceptable number of child murders, but again, that's the trouble with that is now obviously like this is not an apt comparison for this context because what's going on in Gaza is in fact a genocide and not and they're not dying simply um, because of factors outside Israel's control. The trouble is, Now it's not a. Now what's going on in Israel is not a war. Let me clarify. Sorry, Gaza is not a war. Let me clarify that. But in wars in general, hello, my light keeps going out. In wars in general, people get hurt, and again, that I'm saying that as a completely neutral statement. Okay, and like people look, the children of Nazis got bombed. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not passing judgment on that. I'm just pointing out that's what happened. So yes, I look. It doesn't help to kind of, I don't know, grandstand on that. I feel like most people can agree that children don't deserve to be killed. If it, I don't know, I just don't think there's anything I could say to have a proper discussion with um, BadEmpanada's audience. I mean, that audience used to include me for a while. I don't know. Well, see, this is the trouble, because the meaning of people debate over what is murder, um, what isn't, and what's legal, what's legal, what's not, and I don't think it's helpful to say demonize liberals like this. This video was Kid Gloves probably a mischaracter. I haven't seen the video yet. I watched her video. I thought she was going to tie all together, but yeah, I do remember her saying Hamas run there. Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting reports there, because some people are saying that that the government that Gaza is the government there. It's really hard to get reliable intel on a country that's being bombed as much as it is. It's not exactly a country that's been allowed to develop naturally. Oh god, is that? Hmm. Lindsay Ellis, after she made you talk about her. No, look, he's a don't. Oh my god. I just think it's a bit obsessive. I'm not even necessarily saying I disagree with BadEmpanada. I haven't watched this video yet, but does come across as slightly obsessive. Why doesn't Lindsay just go back to making this? Oh, come off it! Oh, come off it! People enjoyed that video. Jesus Christ. The woman is a massive choreographer. Oh, for sake. This is okay. I feel like this attitude is mainly what I came on to complain about. I just don't see how this is helpful. Um, I don't know. She is a female Ethan Klein. I mean, I can see why he'd say that. I don't really agree, though. So that got too. Okay. Again, I can't remember if she said anything about that. I'll have to go and watch the video again. This video. Just admit you're pro-genocide, Lindsay. Uh, Jewish feelings are relevant for contradicting the Israel represents all Jews narrative. Exactly. 70% of Jews support Zionism and Israelis factions are over 7, but are completely wrong about most Jews against Israel. Yeah, but like at the end of the day, but this is how you yeah, but I don't think I just don't think these people understand how a movement works. I just don't think these people know how a movement works. Addressing this narrative with counterexamples is accepting that it is a relevant narrative. Stop playing on the terms that oppressors choose. The correct response is I don't care that Jews support Jewish supremacy. So that's it. Do not validate an illegitimate argument by engaging with it. Exactly. Miss Rachel. Okay. I also believe Miss Rachel says what she believes. She could be against it. No matter what has done, no what she's done. Oh, for fuck's sake. You can't be against killing children, but also against the people defending them. That is a very black and white way of looking at things, Empanada. Like seriously, like okay. Let me look at this. Okay, let me spell it to you like this. Okay, for example, the UK government, by today's standards, and to many people around the world at the time during World War II, were by no means the bad guys, right? But um, if we had not stopped Germany, things would have been quite a bit worse. Let's say. Yeah, I don't know. They'd certainly be worse for me as a trans person. I mean, I just think Bad Empanada's way of looking at things here isn't that helpful. You can't be against killing children, but also be against the people defending them. I mean, yes, you can, because those people defending said children. I mean, yes, you can, because those people defending said children might be okay with killing children of other groups. Oh my god, that is such a stupid argument. That is such a stupid argument. Okay, am I really gonna accuse him of being in a basement or something? Fuck it, let's do it. Nah. Nah, let's not go there. Not go there. It's strange to deny a rise in anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism does not equate anti-Semitism, and I agree it's frustrating when people try to uh, pro-Palestinian rhetoric quickly make that qualification because it does inadvertently link the two where no link exists. But look at Elon Musk, Candace Owens, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's just pure anti-Semitism. It is on the rise and is being weaponized, and as leftists, it's just, of course, to fight against. Two, I think the issue is not.
Let's talk about the Lindsay Ellis video.
What the fuck? Okay, get that. Phew, that's relief. Phew, that's relief. Okay. Liberals have no beliefs, they have no morals, they have no shame. Their sole motivation is to maximize their own comfort. Oh my god. Right, just pop into the loo. Hop into the loo. Ah. I couldn't hurt. Say no. Wowzers. Right. Oh, we're still running? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We good? Uh-oh. Oh, we keep connecting then disconnecting. It's ridiculous. Shit. Hello? Shit. I feel like I might have messed it up. Are we still going? I guess we are. Oh well. Whatever. Whew. Um. duh, 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 duh. Wow, these people don't have any fun, do they? when they spend so much time. What? So you can't complain about anti-Semitism because there's a. What is going on with this internet? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Oh, okay. I think his message want to open eyes of Normans who are still brainwashed. Yeah. Fuck's sake. Make up your mind. Those people were openly anti-Semitic already. I mean, yeah, there might be something to that, but yeah, I feel it is. Musts. What the heck? I swear that. See, the fucking problem here is I've got my VPN on, which might be affecting my internet speed. Um, but if I disable that, obviously, the UK government isn't going to be happy with this video. So, haha. I see you, Keir Starmer. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Are we really gonna watch the video? Am I gonna torture myself with this? Fuck it. Oh god! Get my comfort blanket out. I'm about to. Whatever.
really specifically about Miss Rachel. It seems to be more like her attempt to finally acknowledge the existence of Palestine. And I watched it the other day, and I mean, it was better than I would expect from like a big time, like old guard sort of bread tuber, but still not good. Still bad enough to the point that if this is what people...
Okay, it's a bit booming in my ear. One sec, let me... I don't know if it's... I can never get it right. I'm a noob.
think anti-Zionism is,
Okay.
then we're going to be getting another Gaza genocide within 10 years. And don't worry, I can explain myself perfectly well here. That's specifically what we're here for. It's like the sort of person, and you might have seen a lot of these people if you're familiar with like supposedly anti-Zionist movement. It's like the sort of position where you fundamentally uphold liberal Zionist beliefs, liberal Zionist framing, liberal Zionist principles, while still saying that you're against the existence of Israel as an ethno-state. But the rhetoric that you use is counterproductive to that end goal. So it's a bit iffy to be saying that about yourself and then not really sort of walking the walk, you know? So I like got this comment that this is actually what inspired me to actually watch her video in full. It's like a 2-hour long video, so quite a commitment. Like I got this weird ass comment from a guy who said, "Hey, could you possibly stop harassing Lindsay Ellis for no reason? It's getting gross." And this was a comment on the recent main channel video, Gross. And
Your...
This was a comment on the recent main channel video I made about how the anti-Semitism crisis isn't real. And in that video, I included like a 3-second long clip of Lindsay Ellis saying that there is an anti-Semitism crisis. And that's all there was in this video. Like,
oh shit, I'm becoming that BadEmpanada meme where there's the reaction to the reaction to the reaction to the reaction. Oh shit, we're really doing this.
As an example of people who are like even pro-Palestine people who are...
But burn him, my prophet, my Lord and Savior.
And then I go on in the video to show that it's just not true. There's not a massive anti-Semitism crisis. There's not a rise in anti-Semitism according to the actual data that's provided by those who claim this. This is the part where I actually mention her in this video. Actually, I don't even mention her. I just show 3 seconds of her speaking. Anyone to actually try and look into the evidence for these claims. Even many pro-Palestine people tend to just accept some crisis as an uncontroversial fact that they need to specially account for some reason.
Because global anti-Semitism is rising, it is not helping anyone to deny that.
This ad is about obviously like anti-Semitic hate rising in America, which is very real.
One prominent recent example. Okay, so that's the extent of Lindsay Ellis featuring in this video. This is the only time I've ever mentioned her, I'm pretty sure, on either of my channels. Or I didn't mention her, obviously. It's just like this propensity that people have when they see a creator that they like being criticized to immediately declare harassment. And I guess that's cool because it means they can't actually refute what I was saying in the video. So instead they just try to look for a reason to offhandedly discount what I'm saying, which is by declaring harassment. Because
okay, can you actually get to statistics, please?
Including a 3-second video that you're making there is harassment. Like saying that this YouTuber was wrong is on my second channel. To mention that video, though, haven't mentioned her ever on my main channel. One who I've literally never talked about until I was bored. I just got done like editing my next main channel video, and I was like, okay, I'll sit down for 2 hours. This video that people have been saying is like a lot better than like a lot of other bread tubers or all god bread tubers on this topic, and I'll give a review of it. Not like a reaction. A sort of overview children's entertainer, basically for like entertainer. And from what I know, she wasn't really political at all until she started doing this, and she's gotten a lot of shit for it. Unfortunately, they have successfully bullied her into like denouncing the resistance, deleting videos that she made of a Palestinian journalist and stuff like that, which is very disappointing, particularly because Miss Rachel is very independent. Her primary platform is YouTube. She's fucking massive on like kids YouTube. So she doesn't really need to cave into this pressure. She's in a position like me, where she can be a lot bolder without really facing as much consequences as a lot of other people can stand to be, unless they are willing to endure those consequences. Which, to be clear, isn't an excuse anyway. But it makes it more disappointing to see someone cave when they're otherwise right on what they're saying and cave into the Zionist framing. Like, of course I denounce Hamas terrorism and I want to free the hostages and I had to delete my video where I humanize the Palestinians. And they're specifically in a situation where they make millions of dollars from their independent platform and they don't need to do that. Miss Rachel is in a position to absorb pressure that most people can only dream of. And it's very disappointing that she doesn't utilize her position for that. There are a lot of people who let themselves be bullied far less than Miss Rachel has, even though they are in similar positions where they can be bullied, or even worse positions. Like Javier Bardem is a good example. He's been speaking out about Palestine for 10 years now, endlessly. He's someone who relies on other people. He needs to get acting roles, to have a public profile at all, to get paid at all. Miss Rachel doesn't. Miss Rachel is independent. She's a YouTuber. So it's very disappointing to see her cave so easily on those points when she didn't need to at all. So that's just like the Miss Rachel thing. I'd imagine like her caving was a lot more to do with her just not wanting these groups to scream at her, which they're going to do anyway, than it was her like doing it for financial reasons, because I don't think her finances are really being impacted that much by the Zionist lobby, given how much money she makes on YouTube independently. But that's like my outline on the whole Miss Rachel situation. But Lindsay Ellis's video is not only about the Miss Rachel situation. It's more of like her big like magnum opus sort of video where she finally acknowledges the existence of Palestine. It took a genocide for her to get there, but I mean she's still further along on that than most of these other big former BreadTube creators are. So as I said, this is a review. I'm not going to literally show you the whole video. You know, if you want to see if you agree with me or not, go watch the video. If I was to give this...
That'll be another reaction to the reaction.
As I said, it's somewhere between like liberal Zionism and like entry-level anti-Zionism. So honestly, it's probably better than most BreadTubers, but that's not a very high bar. Here's my problems with this video. One, she seems to be very annoyed with pro-Palestine people in ways that she would not be with people in other situations that are very analogous.
Oh shit! Wait. Oh no, does she... I've watched Lindsay Ellis's original video. Does she like do another reaction to... Oh shit.
For example, when she mentions the death toll, there's a very Zionist framing to it, and who claim that using this death toll is the nihilist.
Why is Miss Rachel focusing so much on Gaza when there are Israeli children who've been taken hostage too, children in Israel who've been murdered too, and it's like, well, because of the numbers.
No, that's not the reason. That's not the reason at all. For one, there was a very small number of children taken hostage, and when they were taken hostage, what happened is, it was either you take these children with their parents or you just fucking leave them there alone. That's the only reason that this happened at all. Two, there's no hostages here. These are not hostages, these are settlers literally living on ethnically cleansed Palestinian land. It's not the same thing. Israel, a settler colonial invading...
Yeah, I can understand... Oh boy. That's debatable, because, see, this is where you get into hot water here, because he is... I don't know if you could class that as terrorism or not. Because I guess it depends what your principles are, because to some extent, I guess you could count anything as terrorism, and this is what's so difficult. And I'm not talking like a legal sense, I'm talking more in like a moral sense. Oh boy. This is tough. It really is. And I don't have any answers for that. Personally, I guess maybe this is just me coming from a privileged position, but personally I tend to like prioritize just, you know, the numbers. And I can understand what Empanada is saying, but I feel like what Lindsay is saying here is equally valid, because I mean, what numbers? Yes, if you save more people than are being harmed, then yeah, like, you've made the world a better place, I guess. It might not be the happy outcome. It might be a bittersweet outcome. It might not be the one you were hoping for, but the world is made, I guess, a little bit better for it. Um, I just don't know. I guess I don't know what I would do in that situation, and this is where it gets very tricky, because if you take numbers out of the equation, then I guess you could justify literally fucking anything, you know. That's difficult when you take numbers out of the equation. It all becomes, I guess, a bit meaningless, and it probably doesn't feel that way to the people experiencing such oppression. But um, I guess for me, I as someone who grew up with uh, in not the happiest household, let's say, um, I guess feeling like I did less harm than I caused. Uh, Wait, that doesn't make sense. Did more good than I caused. I guess that does make it feel like I'm better than I otherwise would be. Um, yeah, I don't have any easy answers for that. I just feel like what Empanada is saying here, if you be fucking anything, and this is where you get into dangerous territory, because you can justify anything with this kind of thinking, because then it all becomes based on personal values, and that's not meaningful in the context of trying to find out what is good. What I guess it just doesn't mean a lot to me. I suppose. Um, for me, numbers um, are very important. So let's just see if there's anything I'm missing here.
Power bombing Palestinian children to smithereens is not the same thing as Palestinian militants incidentally having to sort of take children with them when they take their parents prisoner of war. Because you have to remember, these are literally invading settlers on the frontier. Most of them are literally armed. There's a reason why.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but the trouble is, when you say that, I guess, I mean, perhaps I'm being a bit nihilistic here. It's just, perhaps I'm being a bit nihilistic here. I guess it's just, and again, I'm not trying to provide any moralistic argument here. It's just, we're animals, um, and we compete with other animals for stuff. And the trouble is, like, I just don't. Maybe there's something rotten. Um, I just don't think anything can be accomplished by this kind of. Because you can just argue all day long about oh no, this is worse, no, this is worse. It's the oppression Olympics all over again, and it doesn't achieve anything, in my opinion.
Why they choose to live not in Tel Aviv, but rather in Gaza frontier settlements. I have a whole video on this, the history of these Gaza frontier settlements, that explains how they were specifically formed there to be the first line of defense against Palestinians attempting to reclaim their homeland. Most of them are literally built on ethnically cleansed Palestinian villages. Most of them were explicitly founded as military settlements. The people who live in these settlements know why they are there. To act like it's just the numbers here, no, that's not it. The situations are also totally different. One of them is a group of oppressors, knowingly oppressing. The other group is a group of unambiguous victims. It's not just that more Palestinians have been killed. It's that these groups are in totally different situations, okay? This is like saying that the reason why the Nazis were wrong, massacring people in Poland, is because they have massacred more Polish people than the Polish have massacred Germans. That's not why they...
I mean... Oof. It depends. For me, it depends why they were killed as well.
were wrong. They were wrong because what they were doing was wrong, because the situation they were in was one of a perpetrator versus a victim. It's not simply a numbers game here. So this is the video that I'm talking about here.
Yeah, it's just everyone feels like a victim of everyone when they go and commit horrific things against other groups. It's just they all feel that way, all of them. And I just don't. Maybe I'm just being nihilistic here. I just don't know if that's something you can get.
October 7th, The Real History. On my main channel, if you want more information on this, it goes over the history of the Gaza envelope settlements and how you really cannot so unambiguously compare these two things as she is doing here. It's not a numbers game at all. This is an example of like the Zionist framing here. She doesn't really interrogate these settlements and these people who lived in them and why they were there. She just accepts the Zionist framing of these things as sort of being equal. They're not. They're not at all. Now, the great analogy here would be like Native Americans raiding a settlement on the colonial frontier, stolen from them on their land, versus the Americans genociding those people. Are these two things the same and comparable, and one of them is only worse than the other due to more people being killed? No, they're not comparable at all. Very Zionist framing here. Anyway, the rest of what she says here is very bad. It's much worse than that.
Sometimes numbers
Like, what she was saying there, you could plead ignorance for that. She's just not educated on the issue, okay? This next part is just really comes off as callous and disgusting.
are all we have to go on. These are some of the official numbers given by the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry.
The Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health? Why would...
Well, she'd bring that up because she doesn't necessarily trust Hamas. That would be why she brings it up. Because, see, the trouble... See, I think this is where it gets difficult, because I can understand Empanada's suspicion here, but, like, are you really gonna trust a group that would, like, cut off the heads of gay people? I mean, come on. Look, I understand they may, like, see themselves as fighting for Palestinian liberation, and perhaps they are. But that doesn't necessarily mean you should just take them at their word, right? I mean, I feel like this is my biggest gripe with BadEmpanada. He he's selling a very black and white, which is perhaps ironically more accurate than what the mainstream media is selling people. But he still falls for some of those shortcomings. That this tendency to oversimplify things.
You say that unless you're trying to discredit them. This is just the Gaza Ministry of Health. It's a legitimate health ministry of Gaza. Unless you think that these numbers are unreliable and they should be looked on with skepticism, there's no reason for you to mention Hamas run.
I mean, yes, of course, yeah, I mean, duh. Why do you think she brought it up? Of course that's why she brought it up. Yes, because you can't trust a militant Islamic group. Yes. That's like trusting the fucking Taliban. Yes, of course you can't trust these groups.
You know specifically what the implications of that are.
What? Of course you can't trust these groups.
There's no way you made a 2-hour video on Palestine and you said that without knowing specifically what you were doing. That's just kind of
What do you mean?
gross, honestly.
Health of children killed as of March 2025. And the reason that these are the official numbers.
I'm still baffled by that. Yes, Empanada, of course you wouldn't trust an Islamic, an Islamic extremist group. Yes, of course you wouldn't trust them. No shit, no fucking shit. What? I'm so confused by this framing.
Is because this is the number that they have names for. These are confirmed named deaths as a direct result of Israeli action, although studies have shown that the indirect death toll is likely much, much higher. But then
It's not simply that, it's also that the death toll in general, direct as well, is also much higher because it's impossible to positively identify absolutely everyone, whether it's direct or indirect.
I see people in the anti-Zionist movement saying that the official number of dead, which right now
Well, yeah, that's kind of what she implied. I think you're being a bit bad faith here.
is in the neighborhood of about Israel's atrocities, and I'm like,
No, it's not propaganda, but specifically sticking to that, when by this point there are so many other studies that calculate deaths in the way that you and others like you would usually accept unequivocally in other conflicts, like the Holocaust, for example. Only 4.8 million named dead, Jews specifically, have been specifically named regarding the Holocaust. Yeah, the estimate accepted by you, by me, by everyone else is 6 million. But if you saw someone saying that only 4.8 million people died in the Holocaust, you would be like, that's kind of weird. Why would you be saying that? So why do you get angry at these people for being angry in this situation here, in an exactly analogous situation when if you saw someone doing the same sort of thing for the Holocaust, you would peg them as a Holocaust denier correctly? What you're doing here is the same thing. Why would you say this?
Because this is an ongoing genocide, and there's no way to know the exact number until after. This is such a dumb thing to say. What the fuck?
do you know how many people 60,000 is?
Why are you angry at pro-Palestinian people for telling you not to downplay this by going with the lowest possible estimate?
Oh, I don't know, because it's better to downplay it than upplay it. Because yeah, I feel like it's more reasonable to downplay it. Yeah, because yeah, that's what. Look, do you Empanada? Do you understand how claims work? Like, for example, I'm an atheist, okay, and I don't believe in God. Now, the reason I don't believe in God is not because there's necessarily evidence against the concept of God, because that's just not fucking possible. But that's kind of the point. You have to go with the evidence you have, rather than the evidence that you don't have. Evidence that you can't find. Like, what is she supposed to base things off? Yeah, look, it's like by default, she's going to downplay it because it's better to downplay it than to assume it's like, say, infinity. What? Empanada, do you know how claims work? Do you know how evidence works? My God, that's not. You can't just assume it's the highest number. That is really just bad practice.
60,000 is the size of a large football.
And again, I want to emphasize that none of this like changes like in any meaningful way like what should be done about Israel's genocide. God. I want to emphasize that I agree with what he's trying to say. It's just, my God, the way he goes about it is questionable.
Stadium.
And
60,000 is bigger than my hometown. Who would think that 60,000 is okay?
why would you say this instead of just acknowledging that the real death toll is certainly much higher? What is the point of this?
But she can't say certainly because she doesn't have those numbers. You can't just go with the highest. You can't just go with the highest possible estimate without any way of knowing. Yes, of course she's going to go for solid numbers. What do you expect? That's good practice. I'm sorry, Empanada. I'm sorry you don't have all the data you need. It's the only reason we were able to know the cost is that's after the fact, right? You can't know the exact number while there's an ongoing genocide. That's never happened. That's never been done before. Jesus Christ. It's incredible how bad faith this is.
But 200,000 isn't acceptable. But then there's that problem of the vulgarity of numbers again. At what number is action mandatory? 60,000? 600,000? 6 million? If someone is not repulsed by 6,000 dead, they are not going to be repulsed by 600.
Okay, so what if someone was to do this about the Holocaust, Lindsay? What if someone else was to say, for example, that only 200,000 Jews died in the Holocaust, and, what does it matter if it's 6,000 or 6 million? What does it really matter? What's the difference? If someone's not repulsed by 6,000, they're not going to be repulsed by 6 million. So we might as well just say only 6,000 died, right? We might as well go...
Well, for me, it's more like a ratio of threats being killed to. It's more a ratio of harm caused to harm good than the numbers itself, I guess. Yeah, but I suppose your willingness to do something about it does also have something to do with solid numbers. So there is that tricky numbers bit. And yeah, I can understand what Empanada is saying. It's just this isn't like a coherent way to form a movement, or like at the end of the day, with all due respect, I don't know. I don't think he'd ever be a good politician.
The absolute lowest possible rung estimate that exists. I don't think you believe that at all. I think in this case, you're just for some reason, sort of preemptively trying to defend this when you could have just gone with a higher estimate instead of the lower one. So the logic here doesn't add up because she wouldn't be okay with this in other situations. The logic here, it's just a very weird tangent for her to go on. It does not add up at all. Being accurate with the scale of the atrocity here is important. It's very important. Just as it is with the Holocaust. What's the difference? There is no difference. And the fact that you're acting...
Yeah, yeah, again, you can't know the exact number because it's still ongoing. There is no way to know the exact number. That's just not possible at this present time.
Like there is specifically the problem here. It's very much a big problem. That's one issue with the video. It's like a very directly problematic part of the video. The other big issue of the video is that it's barely even about Palestinians. It frames everything through this framework of Jewish victimhood, of anti-Semitism. The video is much more an analysis of anti-Semitism than it is an analysis of the genocide in Gaza. And that's so weird because the perpetrators of genocide in Gaza are Israelis. They are Jewish people of a Jewish ethno-state doing genocide because they believe that Jews are a superior race and killing Palestinians because they are not Jewish. What is the history of anti-Semitism relevant to this, specifically to this event that you're specifically covering in this video? What is the relevance to this? One has to wonder if there's some sort of implication at play here that if you believe that you were descended by someone or you are descended from someone who was oppressed 100 years ago, that means that we should look at what you're doing with less disgust, with less blame upon you for it. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't see why else you would mention this sort of stuff unless you do think that is the case, because historical Jewish oppression has nothing to do with present-day Jewish atrocities. She specifically goes over the sort of history of anti-Semitism it's about a 10-minute long segment.
Yeah, but the reason she has to address that is as a disclaimer, right? That's what disclaimers are for. Just kind of separate yourself from a certain thing that you don't like. Yes, that's what disclaimers are for. I mean, she didn't necessarily have to do it, but I feel this argument isn't made in good faith.
And she actually from Roman times and stuff, which is ridiculous. This conflict has nothing to do with that. This conflict is literally completely disconnected from that. I mean, calling it a conflict is a sort of slip of the tongue on my part. It's really not a conflict. It's a one-sided regime of ethnic, racial, and religious supremacy against a victim population who were there beforehand, who have been colonized and brutalized by this settler population. And, she has a history segment. It's really not a history segment of Israel-Palestine. It's a history segment about anti-Semitism, about the history of the Jewish people that paints them as historic victims. Which would be fine if you were making a video about that, but this isn't a video about that. This is a video about the Gaza genocide, about Miss Rachel and her stance on the Gaza genocide. What's the relevance of that? Unless you're trying to sort of inject this idea that Jews are historical victims into a discussion of present-day atrocities being carried out by a Jewish state, by a Jewish supremacist state. It's led by Jews. It's
literally the only Jewish state, mind you.
Laws privilege Jews at the expense of others. The people doing the genocide are Jews. The people who support the genocide in Israel, they are Jewish. It doesn't matter if there are Jews outside of Israel who don't support this, or even Jews in Israel who don't support it. It's still fundamentally a Jewish supremacist state. And to mention historical Jewish oppression, it really can only be taken as an attempt to sort of soften what's actually happening here, because it's totally irrelevant to what's happening here. Jews in Israel from the very beginning of the Zionist movement, Jews in Palestine from the very beginning of the Zionist movement, have always been in the position of colonizers, of victimizers. They make victims. They aren't victims themselves. Okay? You're not a refugee anymore the second that you land somewhere else and you cite themselves. Colonizers of the Zionist movement have always been in of the Zionist movement, because it's totally irrelevant to what's happening here. Jews in Israel from the very beginning of the Zionist movement, Jews in Palestine from the very beginning of the Zionist movement, have always been in the position of colonizers, of victimizers. They make victims. They aren't victims themselves. Okay? You're not a refugee anymore The second that you land some claim to refugee status is gone, because a refugee is someone who seeks refuge somewhere to live among the people who live there, not someone who goes somewhere to supplant the people who live there, oppress them, and take over everything they have and ruin their country and ruin their life.
Yeah, but by that standard, you could consider some refugees who, I don't know.
Not the same thing. So there's literally no reason to mention any of this. The video has a whole segment on like Jewish history, a whole segment on anti-Semitism, things that are just like the segment of anti-Semitism is really long, by the way, which is ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. To even mention anti-Semitism in this context of like a Jewish supremacist state massacring people for not being Jews, it can only be taken as a very conscious attempt to engender sympathy for this state and its people who are doing this genocide, and those abroad who support them as well. It's very much Jewish exceptionalist, right? People like this have a lot of issues accepting the fact that Jews are normal people like anyone else who are also capable of doing horrible things, that they do not have some sort of inherited victim essence because their ancestors were oppressed, and that they should not be treated with kids' gloves today. Those of them who are carrying out these atrocities and supporting them cannot and should not be treated with kids' gloves today just because of that. It really does seem like for a lot of people, the worst part about this genocide is that it makes Jews look bad, or that people take it to make Jews look bad. Like, you see a lot of this stuff, right? It's like people who say, like the way that Adam Friedland, who is a well-meaning person and who probably is anti-Zionist, but who's just kind of dumb. I don't blame him for it that much because I think he's just kind of stupid. But Adam Friedland was like, what's happening in Gaza makes me feel bad as a Jew, makes me feel bad about what Judaism means to me or what Jewishness means to me and stuff. And it's like, man, is that really what this is about for you? I don't think that matters at all, man. I think what matters is that people are being fucking slaughtered here in droves. I don't think there's any sort of tragedy here regarding what this means for Jewishness and like how bad this.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree. Wait, but isn't that kind of going off the assumption that killing people is bad? What?
Makes Jews look and feel at all. You're not the victims here. The victims are the Palestinians. Israel-Palestine is treated by people innately.
Yeah, but saying that it makes Judaism look bad, that's based off the shared assumption that killing people is bad.
Different to other similar circumstances where they would not treat it in this way simply because the dominant supremacist group here is Jewish. And as long as these people go along with this framing, we're not going to fix the problem here. The problem, which is Zionism, which is Jewish supremacist Zionism, which is what causes this to happen in Palestine. If you cannot form proper analysis of this regime, which is no less disgusting than like a white supremacist ethno-state would be, just because it's Jewish, they don't get a pass, then you're going to ensure that things like this keep happening. And that's why I critique people like Lindsay Ellis, who say this sort of stuff, who use this sort of framing. It's not out of like a moralistic hatred of them as people. It's because if people are led to believe the sort of framing that they spread here, the situation is never going to be remedied. The problems with it are never going to be remedied.
I agree. It's just, I don't know.
You are leading people into a Zionist framing. And if you lead them into a Zionist framing, we will get Zionist solutions. And the Zionist solution here is, at the very best, separation based on racial lines, no right of return, Palestinians and Bantustans. We can't accept this Zionist framing of like innate Jewish victimhood that needs to be mentioned in every sort of discussion about Palestine. This is a video about Palestine, about Palestinians, about the Gaza genocide that paradoxically spends like 80% of its runtime talking about how Jews are like victims of historical oppression. It's just very weird to do that. She also primarily blames the genocide, very much so, based on her focus on it in this video. Not on like the Zionist movement, not on like the people who actually carry it out, because, you know, they're Jews in Israel who do genocide, who support genocide, who govern Israel, who vote for the same Netanyahu government over and over and over, who vote for the opposition as well, who are also pro-genocide. Those people are Jewish, and it's very difficult for her to accept, based on the framework of Jewish exceptionalism that she has like just drilled into her brain, that those people are the ones primarily responsible for what they do. So she has a whole segment about Christian Zionism, which she sort of frames as the primary party to blame for this, which is not true at all. The primary party is the perpetrators themselves, okay? That's the facts. The primary party are the perpetrators themselves. Blame them for that because they're Jewish and because you have this sort of weird attachment to the idea that Jews are innate victims because of historical oppression, but this is the facts. That's just the truth here. The ones who are carrying this out, who are primarily to blame for it, are the Jewish people in Israel who support this regime of Jewish supremacy, this Jewish ethno-state and its existence, this settler colonial regime. Just because they couldn't do it without US support doesn't mean they're not the primary party responsible, because they're the ones who carry this stuff out. They're the ones who plan it. It's their project. It's not the United States' project. The United States, like, opportunistically supporting them.
Yeah, I've heard different narratives about this, and I'm honestly not sure what to believe on that front, because some people are saying that that he's popular, some of them are saying he's not. It's really, I honestly don't know.
It does not mean that the United States is the one that's primarily to blame for this. In other situations, people wouldn't say that. In other situations, like if someone tried to blame the US for supporting like a dictator somewhere who was doing genocide or whatever, someone like Lindsay Ellis, or maybe not her specifically, but similar people with her mindset, would be like, you're taking away agency from those people. But in this case, we need to remove agency as much as possible from the Israelis, who are the primary perpetrators of the genocide. It's not Christian Zionists who came up with the Zionist project, it was Jews. It's not Christian Zionists who have been primarily responsible for carrying out the Zionist project. It's Jewish Zionists in Israel carrying out with their own two hands. So this framing is incorrect. It's also totally incorrect as being the primary driver of American support for Israel. The primary driver of American support for Israel.
Yeah, but the American support for Israel comes from the Christian Zionism.
Is not Christian Zionism. The primary driver of American support for Israel is just American foreign policy interests in general, which, yeah, there is overlap with Christian Zionists there, but that is the primary driver, okay? It's just Israel independently, because Israel isn't controlled by the US. The US does have coercive power over Israel, but it very rarely uses it.
Also, Britain set up, they set up Israel. Yeah.
And the reason for that is because Israel has a very strong tendency, though it has been sort of pushing the limits on this recently, to independently do things that further American foreign policy interests. So Israel is supported by the US and enabled by the US, and certainly not by Christian Zionists specifically. Israel has a very high level of independence that isn't really equaled by pretty much any other American supported country, aside from maybe Saudi Arabia. When the US does dictate Israeli policy, it's on extremely rare occasions to say you're going too far. This has happened like 5 times total in history, and not recently at all. The US doesn't actually tell Israel what to do. What Israel does is dictated by the Israeli government, by the Israeli people, by the Israeli military, who happen to be Jewish. That is a fact. It's not the fault of the Christian Zionists, and I really don't like the way that this video tries to... It's like an exercise in making the creator and her fans feel better about the fact that they are having negative feelings towards a country of Jewish people, because they have been indoctrinated with this pro-Israel propaganda idea in the last 60 to 70 years or so, as long as it's existed, that has been spread where Jews are like this innate victim population who we always need to treat as like a special group of people. And thus Israel, by extension, needs to be treated differently. And obviously, she has like this sort of innate belief. You know, I used to have it as well. Most people who grew up in a Western society have this sort of belief in their heads about Jews, but it's specifically a pro-Israel propaganda narrative designed to make you like look at Israel differently, to not treat Israel as harshly as you would, say, a white supremacist country doing the exact same things. And this sort of where she blames Christian Zionists as like the primary...
Yeah, it's just you can drum up a lot more empathy for Jews doing it because well, let's face it, white people have never been at least as far as the West is concerned, have never been systemically oppressed. So I can understand the thinking because it's a lot easier to sympathize with Jewish people in that regard because but yes, I agree with there is that aspect of empathy I think he's overlooking.
Culprits of Israel being what it is today, of Israel.
Empathy in a sense of people are more likely to overlook certain things.
Doing the crimes that it does, and puts literally zero emphasis on the actual primary culprits of it, which is Zionist Jews, specifically Israeli Zionist Jews, but also other Zionist Jews abroad who support them. She tries to blame Christian Zionists instead, because I guess it helps her to feel a bit better about the fact that she feels negative feelings towards a so-called Jewish state. It's just incorrect, misleading, misleads people away from what the problem actually is, misleads people away from understanding what's happening here, which is a Jewish supremacist state. It's a legal, institutional, systemic regime of Jewish supremacist settler colonialism. That's what Israel is. And this is misleading people away from understanding two things that are very important for them to understand. One is that American support of Israel is based on pure materialistic belief that Israel is good for American foreign policy interests. You might disagree with that assessment, but I think your conception of what American foreign policy...
I would say the main reason is so that they can sell weapons, honestly. I'd say that's the main reason.
interests are also very different to those who dictate it.
But foreign policy, sure, why not?
They want the Middle East in flames. They want constant fighting. They want constant chaos. They want constant death and destruction.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean by foreign policy.
Because the more death and destruction there is in the Middle East, the less chance there is of anyone fighting back against American hegemony. Okay. And pointing primarily to Christian Zionists is just misleading here, because the US doesn't support Israel primarily for religious reasons. The US primarily supports Israel, even in the Christian Zionists themselves. Most of them primarily support Israel for pure geopolitical reasons. That's why all of them are also like crazy neocons who support every other American imperialist action, okay? So that's the primary driving force. And two, it's just diverting blame. It's diverting primary blame away from the actual perpetrators. People don't think about this in other situations. Think about like the most relevant one to me, like the Argentine dictatorship, for example. In Argentina, people backing, but the primary blame is always still put on the military leaders themselves, the dictators themselves, the troops themselves, the people who did the crimes themselves, the people who instituted this systemic regime of oppression, not the USA. The USA is obviously to blame for it, because without it, it couldn't have happened. But it's not nearly the primary perpetrator, whether you're focusing on specifically in your video, while you also try to sort of instill this narrative in the viewer, this idea in the viewer, that the people of Israel who happen to be Jewish are sort of like innate victims by focusing very weirdly and for a very extended period of time on like an extended portrait of Jewish history, specifically that paints them as victims. That she ends, by the way, in 1948, her talking about the history of like that led up to like Israel. It goes through irrelevant stuff, like framing the conflict sort of like as an ancient conflict, which it's not. It's a recent settler colonial conflict. But it ends in 1948. It ends on Israel's founding. The history that's most relevant to what's happening here.
Okay, I can't do another 10 minutes of this. I'm exhausted. I'll finish in the morning. Oh my god, it's 6 a.m. Good lord. Alright, thanks for watching. See you all later. Oh shit, it's been off center this whole fucking time. Oh, you're joking. Has it been off center this whole time? Oh shit. I am a horrible video editor.